Hey, this is Bill from In the Crosshairs, cxhairs.com, and this is your Moment of SVENNESS. So in addition to the full-blown SVENNESS episodes, I wanted to go back and zoom in on one single feature at a race, similar to what I did in the first season of SVENNESS. For the first installment, we're going to go and take a look at one of two sets of steps at the Super Prestige Ruddervoorde race. Not only the technique riders use to carry their bikes while climbing the steps, but also how they handled the course features directly after the steps. On the first lap, Rob Peters is leading the field. He dismounts 2 strides before the steps and keeps his saddle on the outside of the elbow, not tucked under his arm. At the top of the steps is a 180-degree left turn. What having the bike away from his body allows Peters to do is to lead with his bike. He brings the bike around to the front of his body, which gets the bike on the ground quicker at the top of the steps. Now, let's watch Tom Mason on the same spot. He places the saddle next to his body on his way up the steps. And when we compare the two riders concentrating just on where the bikes are when they reach that top step, you can see that Peters' bike is on the ground, level, and ready to be remounted, where Mason's bike isn't level as it heads back to the ground. Another rider who places the bike outside his elbow is Lars van der Haar. If you watch his technique, he rotates his right hand around the top tube so that he is not pulling the bike up, but rather pushing it from below. This allows him to get the bike high enough so that it does not bounce off the steps. If you're a shorter rider, keep this technique in mind. Now look, I'm not here to tell you that putting the saddle next to your body is wrong. If you've watched even 5 minutes of any European pro cyclocross race, you know many of the best in the world do it. However, if you were to ask me what I'd recommend for most circumstances, it's getting the bike away from your body. You have less of a chance of the saddle getting jarred into your armpit if you hit an obstacle with the bike, less of a chance of having your leg catch on your pedal while running, and it's an opportunity to stop somebody from passing by claiming your space with the bike over the obstacle. When your bike is away from your body, you're big, and you want to make yourself big. So now that we've looked at the steps, let's look at what happens afterwards. There is a string of tight 180-degree turns on this little hillside. Most of the riders are staying on their bike, and a few are running out of choice or necessity. In this first lap, it's so chaotic, it's harder to tell which is faster. But once the selection is made, we get a better idea of what is fastest. As Lars van der Haar and Tom Mason reach the steps, Klaas van Ternat can be seen in the distance 5 seconds back. Van der Haar and Mason both stay on their bikes through the tight uphill-downhill turns. Klaas does not. As they make the next to the last turn, looky there. Klaas has erased the 5 seconds, and on the next turn, he pulls even with Mason. Fast forward 1 lap, and Klaas is still third behind Mason. On the last 180-degree turn, Lars goes wide, and Klaas is able to jump inside and make the pass while van der Haar struggles with the final turn. If we go back, also note that Klaas is shouldering his bike rather than carrying it low. Not a wrong decision, but it does take away one interesting option, for better or for worse, that his teammate used in the U23 race. Michael van Ternat runs this section and easily passes Stan Godry along the way. But what I want you to pay attention to is how he comes around this last 180. We all know the picket fence move where riders use a post as an anchor point while riding around a tight turn. And if you've watched SVENNESS this year, you know about the Vermeersch. Well, here's another variation on that theme. Watch as van Ternat, while running, grabs the post with his right hand and swings his body around. What is important to note here is where van Ternat's left hand is on the bike. It's at the balance point, the place on the top tube where he could lift the bike and it wouldn't tip forward or back. This gives him a bit of control over the bike in a slightly out of control manner. Unlike the Vermeersch, the bike isn't being carried by the handlebars, eliminating the possibility that the drivetrain is dragged across the ground. And once the post is released, the right hand swings right back to the bars. Now back at our elite race, Klaas is now leading. In second is Lars, who still rides the first sections, but he dismounts on the part that he got past that last lap. It's a really nice in-race adjustment by van der Haar. The next time around, Lars is leading, and look what he does. He never remounts after the steps and is able to force those behind him to follow suit. The next several laps, Klaas continues to run while the rest of the leaders go back to riding. And this will be a great place to end. Klaas has shown his tactical acumen, and we can all give him kudos for it. Congratulations, great job, see you next time on your Moment of SVENNESS. And that's why what happens next is a bit of a head scratcher. If you fast forward a couple laps, Klaas is now chasing Mathieu van der Poel, and he's decided at that step section to abandon the run. And you remember when Lars van der Haar got caught on the left side of that last turn a couple laps back? Yeah, right there. Same thing happens to Klaas. He decides to ride instead of run, and he gets stuck and loses time. But it's okay, because the next lap, it's back to the run. But then, final lap of the race, he abandons again, he goes back to riding, and you can see where Mason is just better. So in the end, the takeaway here is twofold. First, don't be afraid to run, even if you're the only one doing it. That may be the game changer for you. And second, when you find something that works, stick with it. It's okay to experiment during a race, but don't mess with a good thing. And that is your moment of SVENNESS. See you next time.